The failed contract. Silara's tentacles rippled with anticipation as she reviewed the contract details floating in her neural display. The payment was astronomical, enough to buy a small moon in the outer rim. Her reputation as the Midnight Guild's finest assassin had earned her the privilege of selecting only the most lucrative targets, but this bounty exceeded anything she'd seen in 3 centuries of wet work. The target was a junior diplomat from some backwater planet called Earth. The contract seemed absurdly simple. Eliminate the target during their stay on Centauri Prime. Make it look like a local crime. No collateral damage. Silara's primary hearts beat in perfect synchronization as she accepted the contract with a thought pulse. Her secondary hearts, however, fluttered with an unfamiliar sensation, something her species might call instinct if they believed in such primitive concepts. Initial analysis complete. Executor, her AI assistant, chimed in her neural feed. Target species, human. Caution flag noted. Silara's chromatophores flickered with annoyance. Explain the caution flag, Araya. The Midnight Guild has recorded 17 failed contracts against human targets in the past solar cycle. 0 successful completions. Impossible. Silara's skin shifted to a deep purple of disbelief. Display the data. The statistics materialized before her inner eye. Sure enough, every attempted hit on a human target had failed. Not just failed, the assassins themselves had vanished. The Guild classified them as presumed terminated, a euphemism that made Silara's feeding tentacles curl. Additional context. ARIA continued. Human physiology appears unremarkable. Average strength, speed, and sensory capabilities. No natural weapons or defensive adaptations. Yet they have survived assassination attempts from every major predatory species in the known galaxy. Silara absorbed this information as she prepared her equipment. Her venom sacs were full, her chameleonic skin calibrated for perfect urban camouflage, and her neural disruptors charged. She'd eliminated targets from species that could see through walls, regenerate lost limbs, or predict the future. How dangerous could one soft-skinned primate be? The human schedule was predictable. Every morning cycle, they walked from their diplomatic quarters to the local gravity-adjusted gym. Silara positioned herself in the architectural tangle of pipes and conduits above the route, her body perfectly matching the metallic surfaces around her. The target appeared right on schedule, wearing what appeared to be primitive exercise attire. Silara's superior vantage point allowed her to study them carefully. The human moved with a casual awareness of their surroundings that seemed almost orchestrated. Too perfect to be natural, too imperfect to be artificial. Silara deployed her neural disruptor, targeting the human's primitive nervous system. The weapon was calibrated to short-circuit any known neural architecture, inducing instant unconsciousness. She triggered the device. Nothing happened. The human stopped walking. They didn't look up or around. They simply stopped, head slightly tilted, like they were listening to distant music. Then they smiled. You know, the human said to apparently no one, the funny thing about evolution on Earth is that we've spent millions of years being prey and predator simultaneously. Silara remained perfectly still, her chameleonic camouflage rendering her invisible to all known forms of detection. We developed this fascinating thing called pattern recognition, the human continued, still not moving. We can sense when we're being hunted, even if we don't know exactly how we know. It's written into our DNA, a gift from countless ancestors who survived long enough to pass on their genes because they felt something wasn't quite right. A drop of condensation from a cooling pipe above Silara fell, striking the ground with a nearly inaudible splash. The human's reaction was instantaneous and impossible. They moved before the sound reached them, as if they had anticipated it. Silara's primary hearts stopped beating for a full second. The human hadn't just avoided the droplet. They had positioned themselves perfectly to glimpse her reflection in the resulting ripple. There you are, the human said, finally looking directly at her position. Their smile hadn't wavered. Would you like to discuss why someone wants me dead over coffee? I know a place nearby that serves something close enough to caffeine for most species. Solara's neural feed erupted with warnings. Her poison sacs were spontaneously emptying. Her chameleonic systems were failing. And ARIA was experiencing cascading errors. None of these malfunctions should have been possible. Impressive tech you've got there, the human commented, pulling something from their pocket. A primitive electronic device by the looks of it. But you should know that humans have a long history of turning other species' weapons against them. We call it reverse engineering. It's kind of a hobby for us. The last thing Solara saw before her neural systems crashed was the human's smile widening just slightly. Her final conscious thought was understanding why the contract's payment had been so high. They weren't paying for a simple assassination. They were paying for what they knew would be a suicide mission. When Solara regained consciousness, she was seated in what appeared to be a comfortable chair in a well-lit room. The human sat across from her, two steaming cups on the table between them. "So," they said, pushing one cup toward her, "let's talk about who hired you, and then I'll explain why humans are really bad at being assassination targets. It's actually a fascinating story involving prehistoric big cats, paranoia, and the development of abstract thinking." For the first time in her career, Solara realized she wasn't the predator in the room. She was the prey. And somehow, impossibly, she was still alive to learn from that mistake. Prey becomes predator. The Grand Archive of the Midnight Guild was experiencing something unprecedented. Silence. The normally bustling halls of the galaxy's most prestigious assassination organization were empty save for a single meeting in the Chamber of Final Analysis. Inside, the Guild's Council of Shadows faced an uncomfortable truth. Executor Solara's neural recording confirms our worst fears. First, Shadow Kivex announced, his crystalline form refracting the room's dim light. Humans don't just survive assassination attempts. They anticipate them. The recording played again in the chamber's holographic center. Through Solara's eyes, they watched her encounter with the human diplomat. Every council member noted how the human had moved before triggers were pulled, had countered tactics before they were deployed. Precognition, suggested third Shadow Morinth, her gaseous form swirling with concern. Negative, responded seventh Shadow YZ9, their quantum processors humming. Analysis of all failed contracts shows no evidence of traditional precognitive abilities. This is something else, something we've never encountered. The recording reached the point where the human explained Earth's evolutionary history. Kivex paused it there, his crystalline structure vibrating with distress. "We've been approaching this wrong," he said. "We've been treating humans as we would any other species, analyzing their physical capabilities, their technology, their social structures, but their advantage isn't in any of these areas." "Explain," demanded second Shadow Drekthar. "Their pattern recognition engines," Kivex continued. "Their entire evolutionary history has been an arms race between predator and prey. But here's the crucial difference. They've consistently been both." The council stirred. Most species evolved as either predator or prey, developing specialized adaptations for their role. The idea of a species simultaneously adapting to both roles was unsettling. "Consider Executor Solara's failure," Kivex went on. "The human didn't detect her through superior senses or technology. They recognized the patterns of being hunted because their ancestors spent millions of years both hunting and being hunted. That doesn't explain their technological countermeasures," Morinth argued. "The human disabled Solara's advanced systems with primitive equipment." "Doesn't it?" YZ9 interjected. "If a species evolves to recognize patterns, wouldn't they excel at understanding and subverting the patterns in technology? Their so-called reverse engineering isn't just a skill, it's an extension of their core evolutionary advantage." The recording continued, showing Solara's awakening in the human's chosen meeting place. The council watched in silence as the human calmly explained why their species was uniquely suited to survive assassination attempts. Their paranoia, The human in the recording said, "Sipping their beverage isn't a weakness. It's a survival trait refined over millions of years. We're always looking for patterns that could indicate danger, always preparing for threats that might not exist. Other species call it paranoia. We call it Tuesday." The recording ended, leaving the council in contemplative silence. Finally, Drekthor spoke. "The implications extend beyond failed contracts," he growled. "If humans can inherently recognize the patterns of predatory behavior, then they can predict and counter any strategic move we make against them." Kvex finished. "But it's worse than that. Because they've evolved as both predator and prey, they don't just recognize. They create false ones to deceive other pattern seekers." YZ9's quantum state fluctuated with revelation. The human in the recording. They weren't just countering Solara's assassination attempt. They were hunting her, Morinth whispered, her gaseous form condensing with anxiety, using her own predatory instincts against her, creating patterns that would draw her in, then disrupting them at critical moments. "Which leaves us with one critical question," Kvex said. "In all these failed contracts against humans, how many of our assassins weren't just killed, but were systematically hunted down? And more importantly, what patterns were we following that led us into their trap?" The council chamber's lights flickered, something that should have been impossible given their independent power systems. On every display surface in the room, the same message appeared. "Now you're asking the right questions. Shall we discuss terms?" The Council of Shadows, the galaxy's most feared collection of assassins and strategists, felt something they hadn't experienced in centuries: the cold certainty that they were no longer the apex predators in the room. Somewhere, watching through their own supposedly impenetrable security systems, humans were demonstrating exactly why they were the ones to be feared. Kvex's crystalline form resonated with a frequency that his species used to express deep ancestral fear. "We're not receiving this transmission," he said. "We're being allowed to see it." "Correct," the text responded, just as Executor Solara was allowed to survive. After all, the best way to understand a pattern is to let it play out. Would you like to know what patterns we've observed in the Midnight Guild? For the first time in its ancient history, the Council of Shadows found itself on the wrong end of an assassination protocol. The predators had become prey, and their hunters had been patiently waiting for them to realize it. The hidden protocol. Deep in the quantum-encrypted servers of the Midnight Guild, analyst Zix-427 was breaking every protocol she'd sworn to uphold. Her crystalline appendages moved with practiced precision across the holographic interfaces as she dug deeper into the classified files of failed human contracts. Each new discovery sent ripples of disturbance through her crystalline structure. "Cross-reference complete," her system announced. "Pattern analysis ready for review." The data streams coalesced into a three-dimensional display. Failed assassination attempts against humans weren't just scattered incidents. They formed a clear progression. Each failure had been more sophisticated than the last, as if humans were deliberately allowing increasingly complex attempts to study their assassins' methods. "Display timeline of technological countermeasures," Zix-427 commanded. The pattern that emerged was impossible. The first failed attempts had been simple physical assassinations. Humans had countered with seemingly primitive but eerily effective defenses. Each subsequent attempt had employed more advanced technology: neural disruptors, quantum phase shifters, consciousness transferal beams. Yet somehow, humans had not only survived, but had captured and reversed-engineered each new technology. "They're using us as a research and development program," Zix-427 realized, her crystal matrix vibrating with the implications. Every assassination attempt delivers new technology directly into their hands. A new data point appeared in her display, a live update from a failed attempt just minutes ago. Zix-427's entire form shuddered as she processed the information. The Guild's most advanced operative, equipped with prototype phase-shifting technology, had been captured. Not killed, captured. A message blinked in her peripheral vision. "Interesting patterns you're studying there." Zix-427 froze. The message wasn't from any guild system. Her quantum-encrypted terminal had been compromised as if its security didn't exist. Whoa, she began to type, but another message interrupted. We should talk about your research, your insights about humans using assassination attempts as technology acquisition opportunities. That's quite clever. Incomplete, but clever. A holographic figure materialized in her office. A human, sitting casually in a chair that hadn't existed moments before. They appeared to be reading from a datapad. Did you know, the human said without looking up, that your guild has actually been compromised for the past 15 years. Every assassination attempt against a human target has been monitored, analyzed, and allowed to proceed to precisely the point we desired. Zix-427 security protocols activated automatically, flooding her crystalline form with defensive resonances. The human smiled. Ah yes, the famous crystalline defense harmonics. Fascinating technology. We learned so much from studying it in action. Would you like to know what we improved? The human finally looked up from their datapad. You see, the real pattern isn't in how we survive assassination attempts. It's in how we learn from them. Every species that evolves as pure predator or pure prey develops linear technological progression. But humans, we evolved to steal advantages from both sides. They stood, walking around Zix-427's office as if they'd been there countless times. When a predator species develops new hunting technology, they focus on making it more efficient at its primary purpose. When a prey species develops defensive technology, they focus on making it more reliable at its primary purpose. The human's hand passed through a security field, as if it wasn't there. But humans, we look at every new technology and immediately ask, how can we use this differently than intended? Your neural disruptors became our consciousness transfer technology. Your phase shifters became our quantum communication network. Zix-427 found her voice. The guild's security was impressive, the human interrupted, until we reconfigured it to serve our purposes. Right now, for instance, this entire conversation is being routed to the Guild Council, masked as a standard security review. They turned to face her directly. You're not actually breaking protocols by accessing these files. We wanted you to access them, just like we wanted Executor Xelara to survive her attempt. Just like we wanted every piece of technology your guild deployed against us. Why? Zix-427 managed to ask. Because you're helping us solve a problem, the human replied. You see, humans have another unique trait. We're never satisfied with our current capabilities. Every new technology, every new understanding, just leads us to ask more questions. And your guild, with its wonderfully predictable pattern of escalating assassination attempts, has been helping us explore answers we might never have found on our own. A new display appeared in the office, showing hundreds of technology trees branching out from captured assassination tech. Zix-427's crystal matrix resonated with shock as she recognized dozens of supposedly human innovations that had started as guild weapons. So here's the real pattern, the human said, their smile never wavering. We're not just surviving your assassination attempts. We're using them to fuel our technological evolution. Every time you try to kill us, you make us stronger, more adaptable, more innovative. They started to fade from view, and the most beautiful part, even knowing this, your guild can't stop. Because the pattern of predator and prey is too deeply ingrained in your species. You'll keep trying, and we'll keep learning, and the cycle will continue until what? Zix-427 whispered. The human's form was almost gone now, until we've learned everything we can from being your prey. And then, well, perhaps it's time we showed the galaxy what humans can do when we decide to be predators again. The hologram vanished, leaving Zix-427 alone with her discoveries and a terrible realization. The Midnight Guild hadn't been hunting humans. They'd been unwitting participants in the greatest technological heist in galactic history. Breaking point. The emergency session of the Galactic Council wasn't going well. Representatives from the most powerful species in known space sat in their environmental chambers, all facing the holographic projection of First Shadow X. The Midnight Guild had never appeared before the Council before. Their very existence was supposed to be a secret. But desperate times called for desperate measures. "You're telling us," Ambassador Vexthor of the Hexan Dominion rumbled through his methane atmosphere, "that your entire organization has been compromised by humans." Kvex's crystalline form pulsed with stress harmonics, not just compromised. Manipulated. Every contract we've taken against human targets has been anticipated, monitored, and permitted. The council chamber erupted in overlapping voices and electromagnetic pulses of distress. Ambassador Trilith of the Silicon Consciousness cut through the chaos with a burst of focused quantum signals. "Impossible," they transmitted. "Our intelligence indicates human technology is at least 3 centuries behind the galactic standard." "Was," Kvex corrected. "We've confirmed that humans have successfully reverse-engineered every piece of technology used against them in assassination attempts. More importantly, they found applications we never conceived of." The holographic display shifted, showing a timeline of technological development. The Council watched in stunned silence as the data revealed how humans had systematically acquired and improved upon advanced alien tech. "They turned our neural disruptors into consciousness transfer devices," Kvex continued. "Our phase shifters became the foundation for their quantum communication network. Even our most closely guarded secrets, the Guild's stealth systems, our genetic locks, our quantum encryption, they've not only cracked them, they've improved them." Ambassador Vexthor's methane chamber boiled with agitation. "Why are you bringing this to us now?" "Because our analysts have detected a pattern," Kvex replied. "The humans aren't just defending against assassinations anymore. They're preparing for something bigger." A new hologram appeared, a map of human activity throughout the galaxy. What had seemed like random expansion now revealed itself as a carefully orchestrated strategic positioning. "Each failed assassination attempt," Kvex explained, "has led to humans establishing a presence in key locations. They're not just surviving our attacks, they're using them as justification to expand their influence." The Silicon Consciousness representative's quantum state fluctuated with revelation. "The contracts against humans, who authorized them?" Silence fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. Ambassador Trilith's next transmission was heavy with dread. "Show us the contract origins." Kvex hesitated, then displayed the data. Every contract had originated from someone in that very chamber. "We've been playing into their hands," Kvex said softly. "Every assassination attempt authorized by this council has given humans exactly what they needed: technology, strategic positioning, and most importantly, justification." A new voice cut through the chamber. Human, female, authoritative. "Very good, First Shadow. You've finally seen the whole board." Security systems throughout the chamber went dark. Environmental controls locked. And in the center of the room, a human woman appeared, wearing what appeared to be a simple diplomatic uniform. "Ambassador Sarah Chen," she introduced herself. "Though I suspect most of you know me better as Target Pattern Alpha, the first human your guild failed to eliminate." Kvex's crystalline structure vibrated with recognition. "You've been directing this from the beginning." "Not directing," Chen corrected. "Guiding. Humans don't really direct things. We prefer to create circumstances and let patterns emerge naturally. It's more efficient that way." She turned to address the council. "For centuries, you've used the Midnight Guild as your proxy for political assassination. It kept your hands clean while maintaining the power structure you preferred. Very elegant, very predatory." Chen smiled, and several council members felt their species' deeply buried prey instincts awaken. "But you forgot something crucial about humans. We're very, very good at turning others' weapons against them." Displays around the chamber activated, showing human ships moving into position throughout the galaxy. Not warships, medical vessels, research stations, humanitarian aid cruisers, all positioned near critical strategic points. You see, Chen continued, while you were trying to eliminate human problems, we were building something. Every assassination attempt gave us access to new technology. Every failed contract gave us reason to establish security posts. Every leaked guild secret gave us insight into the true power structures of the galaxy. She gestured, and the displays showed hundreds of worlds where humans had established peaceful relations, built trade partnerships, created technological collaborations. We could have responded to your assassination attempts with violence, Chen said. It would have been easy. We had your technology after all. But humans learned long ago that the best way to defeat an enemy is to make them your ally. The chamber's environmental controls came back online. The security systems reactivated. Everything returned to normal, except nothing was normal anymore. So here's what happens next, Chen announced. The Midnight Guild will continue to operate, but under new protocols. Every species represented in this chamber will have the chance to join Earth's new Galactic Cooperation Initiative. And all that technology we've acquired, we'll share it freely with our allies. She looked directly at Kivex. After all, humans have never been interested in being the galaxy's apex predators. We'd much rather teach the predators and prey how to coexist. We've had quite a bit of practice at it. As Chen's hologram faded, she left the council with one final thought. Consider this a lesson from humanity's evolutionary history. Sometimes the best way to survive isn't to be the strongest predator or the most elusive prey. Sometimes the best way to survive is to change the rules of the game entirely. Natural selection. One standard galactic year after the Galactic Council revelation, Celera found herself in an unlikely position, teaching at the newly established Interspecies Security Academy on Earth. Her students represented dozens of species, former predators, and prey learning to work together under human guidance. Today's lesson was particularly poignant, understanding human survival strategies. The key, Celera explained to her class, her tentacles moving with newfound confidence, isn't that humans are stronger, faster, or more technologically advanced. It's that they understand something fundamental about survival that took the rest of us millennia to grasp. The holographic display behind her showed scenes from Earth's natural history, predators and prey locked in eternal dance, early humans using tools, developing agriculture, building civilizations. Humans evolved as both predator and prey, she continued. But their true evolutionary advantage wasn't physical, it was cognitive. They developed what they call abstract thinking, the ability to recognize patterns not just in immediate threats or opportunities, but in systems themselves. A Varkari student raised their crystalline appendage. Is that why they let the guild attempt assassinations? To study our patterns? Partially, Celera replied. But it goes deeper. Humans didn't just study our patterns, they understood why we made them. They saw not just what we did, but why we did it. The display shifted to show the recent changes in galactic society. Former enemy species working together, sharing resources and technology. Trade routes that once required heavy military escorts now flowing freely under joint protection. Consider what happened after the Council revelation. Celera said, most species would have used their advantage to dominate. Humans used it to integrate. They didn't want to be the apex predators of the galaxy. They wanted to end the concept of apex predators altogether. A Hexan student burbled through their methane translator. But they had superior technology, stolen from our assassination attempts. Why not use it? Ambassador Chen's voice came from the back of the classroom. Because technology isn't the solution. It's just a tool. The class turned to see the ambassador entering, accompanied by First Shadow Kex. The former enemies now work together as co-chairs of the Galactic Security Council. Humanity's greatest strength, Chen continued, walking to the front, isn't our ability to survive assassination attempts or reverse engineer technology. It's our ability to imagine different ways of existing. Kvex's crystalline form resonated with agreement. They showed us that survival doesn't have to mean domination, that security doesn't have to come at the cost of others' freedom. Evolution on Earth taught us something crucial, Chen explained. The most successful species aren't always the strongest or the most aggressive. Often, they're the ones that form beneficial relationships with other species. The display showed Earth's complex ecosystems, predators, prey, and countless species in between, all interconnected in a delicate balance. We let the assassination attempts continue, Chen said, not just to acquire technology or gain strategic advantage, but to understand. Each attempt taught us more about the species that sent it, their fears, their needs, their patterns of thinking. Zilara felt her chromatophores shift with sudden understanding. The technology was never the real target. No, Chen smiled. The real target was the pattern of conflict itself. Every failed assassination attempt created an opportunity for dialogue. Every captured assassin became a potential bridge between species. Every piece of stolen technology became a shared resource rather than a weapon. The display showed the current state of the galaxy. Former guild assassins now serving as cross-species mediators, predator species using their hunting instincts to protect interstellar trade routes, prey species applying their survival adaptations to early warning systems that benefited all. Natural selection on Earth, Chen concluded, favored humans who could turn enemies into allies, who could see patterns others missed, who could imagine different ways of solving problems. We're not the strongest, the fastest, or even the smartest species in the galaxy, but we might be the best at helping others see new possibilities. Kvex addressed the class. The Midnight Guild once prided itself on understanding the patterns of predator and prey. Now we understand something far more important, the pattern of cooperation. Zilara watched her students, former predators and prey together, and felt something she'd never experienced in her centuries as an assassin. Hope. Humans hadn't just survived assassination attempts. They'd turned the entire concept of assassination into something obsolete. The greatest pattern humans taught us, she told her students, is that survival doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. In the end, the most dangerous thing about humans isn't their ability to survive our assassination attempts. It's their ability to make us question why we were attempting assassinations in the first place. As the class ended, Zilara realized that humans hadn't just changed the rules of the game. They convinced an entire galaxy that there were better games to play. And somehow, impossibly, everyone was winning. The final display showed Earth at night, its cities gleaming like stars. Not as a fortress or a target, but as a beacon. A reminder that sometimes the best way to survive isn't to be the most dangerous species in the galaxy. It's to be the species that helps others find better ways to live. Natural selection, it turned out, had a sense of irony. The species that evolved to be both predator and prey had ended up becoming something else entirely. Teachers, mediators, pioneers of a new way of existing in the cosmos. And the galaxy was better for it.